up, Commander fans? This is John, CommandZone.com. Got another deck tech for you. Today we are going to go with Jarad, Golgari, Lich Lord. He's a really cool guy from Return to Ravnica. He has an ability. It's one colorless, a black and a green. Sacrifice a creature. Each opponent loses life equal to the creature's power. So basically, we're just going to try and leverage that ability in this deck and sacrifice creatures and all kinds of other stuff. And synergize with that kind of with that effect, with the sacrifice effect, to basically kill all of our opponents at the same time. Okay, so let's get started here, and let me move him out of the way as usual. Let me put him right in the corner. We'll start with the lands. This deck now, because Jarad costs 2 black and 2 green to cast, and his ability costs a green and a black, I wanted to make sure that we had enough colored mana in the deck and enough colored mana sources plus removal to make this deck work. So there are 9 swamps, and I have 8 forests. Okay, so we're going to start off with 9 swamps, 8 forests. We'll get to the colorless mana sources. Now, I didn't put many in simply because of what I just said. He costs a lot to cast, 2 black, 2 green, and his ability costs green and black. So I think we're going to be kind of bogged down on mana, especially colored mana. So I decided just very, very little colorless mana in this deck. So we have Strip Mine, Phyrexian Tower, which is really not colorless, and then we also have Volrath Stronghold. That's it for the colorless mana sources, and so why don't we get to the colored non-basic lands? Let's do that. Alright, we'll start off with a Mosswort Bridge. Mosswort Bridge is fine in this deck. A lot of the creatures are 6 casting cost and up, so Mosswort Bridge does a fine job. It can accelerate us out to a larger creature, and it can actually do something on turn 2. We can actually turn 2 Mosswort Bridge with a Phyrexian Dreadnought. We can put his trigger on the stack and use the Mosswort Bridge, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, next we'll get to a Gaia's Cradle, of course. We have the pair here with Cabal Coffers and Urborg. And then, actually, you know, that's about it. Let's get to the multicolored lands, the duels. We have Command Tower, Overgrown Tomb, Bayou, Twilight Mire, Llanowar Wastes, and City of Brass. And after that, we have all of the fetches, as usual. I try and put all of them in. Marsh Flats, Bloodstained Mire, Windswept Heath, Polluted Delta, Verdant Catacombs, Misty Rainforests, and Wooded Foothills. So those are your lands in the deck. There are 37 of them total. And like I said, we do need a lot of mana in this deck, so I am running quite a bit of acceleration as well. So let's take a look at that. Now I've set these piles up so that they will be anything that I view as acceleration in the deck. So even if it's a creature like Sakura Tribe-Elder. So we have Sakura Tribe-Elder, a very good efficient creature. You should probably put him in all of your green decks. So we have Sakura Tribe-Elder, we have a Mind Stone, we have Sculpting Steel, Soul Ring, Thran Dynamo, Cultivate, Sky Shard Claim, Gilded Lotus, Coalition Relic, Solemn Simulacrum, Felwar Stone, Mana Vault, Oracle of Moldiah, Golgari Signet, Basalt Monolith, and the Big Daddy Mana Reflection. So like I said, there's a ton of mana acceleration in this deck. We need it, and you're going to see why very shortly. So yeah, we need all the mana acceleration we can get. We do want to play as many creatures and sacrifice them as much as we can in this deck. So why don't we get to the creatures that we have. We'll show off a little bit of Jarad's synergies. So the first creature is kind of particular to Golgari here. I usually don't run him in my green decks, and that's Pelakka Worm. Pelakka Worm is pretty good. He's a little tight on the mana with 3 green, but he comes into play, he gains you 7. He goes in the bin, he draws you a card, and he domes everyone for 7. So I think Pelakka Worm is okay in this deck. I do have ways to recur creatures quite frequently. So doming them for 7, plus drawing a card, plus gaining 7, I think is worthy enough of putting in this deck. So we're going to try that. So now, let's just get to a card that synergizes with Pelakka Worm, which is Mikaeus the Unhallowed. So Mikaeus is kind of one of the staple creatures in this deck, and he kind of shows off the synergies that we're looking for, right? So what Jarad will do is he will sacrifice a Pelakka Worm, it comes back with Mikaeus, and do it again. So if you have 6 mana on board, you can gain 14, you can dome everyone for 14, and you can draw 2 cards, which is pretty sweet with a Machias out. Actually, it'd be 18 because you get the counter. I'm sorry, 15. You get the counter from Machias when Blockworm comes back to the board the second time. So we're looking for synergies like that in this deck, and that is basically how we are going to kill our opponents. There are more cards in this deck that do work with Jarad. We'll get to those, but we'll continue with the creatures. And one of them is Massacre Worm. I'm trying Massacre Worm out. I think it's really good. It could just, out of nowhere, kill somebody very easily. Even when it stays on board later on in the game, it can still do a ton of damage after sweepers and other things like that. So I'm trying Massacre Worm. It seems pretty good. Another one of the big daddies here. I guess we're starting on the top end of the deck. We've got Kakusho. And, he's just amazing. I mean, he comes in. When he goes in the graveyard, when he goes in the graveyard, everyone loses 5 life, and I gain that much life. And that is actually another theme that I'm running with in this deck, which is life gain. I try to put as many really good creatures in the deck and cards that would gain me life, just because there are other cards that kind of offset that by losing life when I cast them. So we decided that it's necessary to put creatures in or cards in that will allow us to gain the life back from the other cards that are making us lose life. Because, I mean, this deck is kind of going to draw out. It's not a real aggressive deck. It doesn't really win in combat. It can, I mean, but it usually doesn't. It's going to win with Jarad's ability, which is sacrificing creatures. So that's what we're really trying to do here. So let's get another one out. Runescar Demon. He's going to tutor us. He's going to demonic tutor something for us. When he comes into play, domes everyone for 6. And like I said, this deck is built around bringing these creatures into play more than once each turn and using Jarad's abilities over and over again. So when they do go into the bin, when they do come back, I'm going to be able to tutor up more cards and do all kinds of other crazy things. So he's very good. We have Fierce Empath. Obviously a very good one. It tutors up all the guys we just spoke about. And we'll put a couple more in that he also tutors. We have Terastodon, which is another fabulous card for Jarad. Everyone takes 9, and it could be doubled with a Wound Reflection if we have it, so everyone could take 18 and basically just win the game just like that. We have Woodfall Primus, another great guy. He comes in twice by himself, destroys a non-creature permanent, and then eventually goes in the bin. We have Shieldred, because we are putting creatures in the bin, and we do want to make sure that they come back at some point, so that's one of our ways to bring them back. We have Wormcoil Engine. As I said earlier, we want to be able to gain life back from cards that we are, have to spend life to use. So Wormcoil is very good. Let's see. Now here are some of the ones that are kind of on the fence. Actually, not this guy. Let's get Harvester of Souls in here. Harvester of Souls, I think, is my new favorite black creature, just because he allows us to draw cards. That is an ability and effect that black does not have in Magic. And it's really an easy effect to accomplish in EDH and basically any format with black. So Harvester of Souls is going to draw us 1,000,000 cards, and he's going to be really good. So I suggest you put him in the black deck. Now here are some of the cards that I'm not sure about or maybe need to be changed. Oop, not this one. Let's get him in there. Sorry guys, Phyrexian Dreadnought, he's an all-star. Comes into play. When he comes into play, it says you must sacrifice 12 power of creatures, or you sacrifice him. So that trigger goes on the stack, you use Jarad, you put him in the bin, 1 mana, everyone loses 12 life. It's pretty cool. Alright, next one. Actually, he's supposed to be in there as well. Ewit, maybe, you know what, maybe I like all the creatures in this deck, I don't know, maybe I do. But Ewitness, obviously, he's a graveyard tutor, so we can get back one of those creatures we put in the bin, or some other kind of spell we need. Next one. Disciple of Bolas. I like this guy the more I play with him. He's pretty good. He's really, really good. He does everything you want. He's one of the cards that's going to gain us some life back. We have Genesis. A little slow, but he's very nice. Omnath, if we decide to float some green mana into a Gaia's Cradle or something like that, we can maybe dome them for a lot with Omnath. So he's very good. He also will Legacy Bomb, another General Bomb, whatever you want to call it. So that's nice. Now here are the 3 creatures I'm pseudo on the fence about. And you can comment about these guys if you think I have better options. Now there is a better option for Obnix, which is Lord of Extinction. I don't own a Lord of Extinction yet, so he's not in the deck. But I think Obnix will take his place for a while, simply because every time I play a land, he gets pumped. He can just bolt a guy to the face when I play a land. He's going to get a lot bigger, and eventually he's going to get pretty big, and I'll use Jarad's ability and hopefully, just lava axe everyone in the face for like 15 or something like that. And he's also very good with a Genesis Wave, which we do have in the deck. So he should be a Lord of Extinction, but right now he's an Obnix. I think Obnix is okay. Obnix is not really a threat, but he's also a threat. Like he's a threat that no one looks at. And I think that's deceivingly strong in EDH because most opponents will leave Obnix on the board because he can get chumped by a 1/1, and he doesn't really do very much. But over time, he's going to grow immensely, and he is going to just burn them like to the ground. He's going to just destroy everybody if he's allowed to stay on board. So he's actually kind of okay. And then we have Thragtusk. Just for efficiency, he gains 5 life when he comes into play, and he leaves behind a guy. So he's probably the worst of all the creatures in the deck. And maybe he should be the Lord of Extinction. Probably. I'll have to get one. But he should be Lord of Extinction, probably. And then my last guy is Viscera Seer. I wanted to find a creature specifically that could sacrifice another creature without having to pay any cost for some positive, some positive ability or whatever, some positive thing that would happen for me. So I believe Viscera Seer is that guy. He can scry 1, which is relevant. I mean, we don't want to be drawing lands late in the game because we do have a lot of mana sources. So Viscera Seer can sack a guy for us. He can bring a guy back with Machias. I mean, all of my creatures do something when they come into play. So if I have a Machias out, or if I have some other cards, and I'll show you them in a second, or any graveyard base card, Viscera Seer can help me, rebuy all of those cards over and over again. And I think he's the best card for the solution to the problem that I'm looking for. So for right now, Viscera Seer is going to stay in the deck. I think he's pretty good. But yeah, I mean that's where Viscera Seer's place is. We'll see how he does, but I think he's okay. He's a little 1-mana guy, but he really can add to the synergy of the deck, and he can make it function a lot smoother. All right, so let's get to the artifacts that are not acceleration, that I categorize as not acceleration. And we'll start with Phyrexian Processor. This is one of those cards that works with Jarad that we have to pay life in order to use. So basically, hopefully, we're going to ramp out into Phyrexian Processor, and we pay 3 life, or I'm sorry, we pay 20 life on turn 3, maybe. He comes out, and then we start making 20/20s as long as Processor stays on the board. So actually, for all of those who are playing this game, you probably don't want to play Processor unless you have 8 mana on board, because you at least want to get 1 activation out of it before it's killed. So anyway, Phyrexian Processor, very good card in this deck with the synergy. We have Mimic Vat, another great card, works with Viscera Seer and a couple other cards in this deck. Mimic Vat is very, very good. I don't have to really say any reason why. I think we all know. And then we have Nim Deathmantle, another card with Viscera Seer. Works very well. Nim Deathmantle can allow us to rebuy all the cards that go into the bin. And I like Nim Deathmantle with this guy, which is Ashnod's Altar. So Ashnod's Altar and Viscera Seer kind of do the same thing. One of them sacrifices for Scry, and one of them sacrifices for 2 mana. And I think they're both relevant, and I think they both are situational, and you want to use one in one situation, you want to use another in another. So if we're looking to get deeper in our deck, obviously Viscera Seer is going to be the guy to use. And if we want to make some mana for a Nim Deathmantle or for a Genesis Wave, something like that, we'll use the Ashnod's Altar. Alright, so those two are really, really good. Let's get Viscera Seer out. He's had his time. Okay, next one is Rings of Brighthearth. This card is really, really strong. You can pay 2, and you can copy the activated ability of a Jarad, which is really sweet. I mean, if you're sacking a guy for 9, you're sacking Trastodon, everyone takes 9. Nope, now they all take 18. All right, so they take double a Jarad activation, or even they can it can fetch you out a second a fetch land, right? So if you sacrifice a fetch, you can copy it for 2, and you can get 2 lands out at the end of turn, which is really cool. So it does a lot of little things. I think it's a really, really strong card. It also works with cards like Naya Spellbomb. You can, excel 2 graveyards, which is kind of neat. We have, obviously, the Skull Clamp to draw some cards. We have the top for some library manipulation. And last, we have a really cool card from Urza Saga. It's called Lifeline. Lifeline says, whenever a creature goes into the bin, if there is a creature on board, at the end of turn, bring that creature back into play. So this is a symmetrical card that works for you and your opponents. However, this deck is hopefully going to break the card more than the other decks do. So basically, sacrifice a guy with Viscera Seer, or one of the sack outlets in the deck. There are many, including the General. And the creature will come back at the end of turn. So it's really cool. A lot of the creatures in this deck have come into play abilities, so we really want to take advantage of those with cards like Lifeline. Alright, on to the tutors. We have Worldly Tutor, Regrowth, Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Cruel Tutor, Survival of the Fittest, and then two that I really like. This one's a 2-for-1 always, Pattern of Rebirth, and when I say 2-for-1, I mean I get 2-for-1 usually. So this is a card for the metagame. If your meta has a lot of spot removal running around, do not play Pattern of Rebirth. It will get you in trouble quite often. If you don't have a lot of spot removal in your meta, if you're just playing against a lot of sweepers and a lot of control decks that use counters and all kinds of permission spells, then I would play Pattern of Rebirth. It can be really cool if you sneak one onto the board. So use that one. And the last card is Defense of the Heart. Like I said, Jarad is a pretty slow deck. It's not really that fast. I think the Glissa deck, if you're looking to play green-black, is slightly faster. But Jarad can win out of nowhere, and if people see a Defense of the Heart on board, like, they just stop playing creatures just totally, completely. It's amazing. Everyone just stops playing all of their creature spells, and you kind of get to sit there and play your own creatures and put them in the bin and do all kinds of fun stuff. So people are very afraid of this card. If for nothing else, it will sit there on the board until someone can remove it with some kind of enchantment removal spell, and we know those are kind of few and far between in Commander. So defense is actually a very good card in this deck, and I really like it. Normally I don't play it, but this deck is very good. So now let's get to just some sweepers. We have Damnation, Decree of Pain, a nice drawing engine here for us, and Pernicious Deed. Those are the three sweepers. And let us get to some other cards that just either removal or some whatever else that just don't fit in any other pile. So we'll start with the Maelstrom Pulse. Very good. Victimize. We're going to have some big dudes in the graveyard, so Victimize will work very well for us. Another card that we have to pay life for is Skeletal Scrying. Skeletal Scrying is very good. It's going to draw us cards. It's an instant, right? The biggest positive on this card is it's an instant. So we can remove all the cards in our graveyard, or whichever ones we don't need. Skeletal Scrying, draw an extra 5 or whatever it is. So that's a very strong card, and I hope you put in your decks. All of your black decks. Skeletal Scrying is really, really good. Alright, continue on. Wound Reflection. This card doubles any life lost during the turn. So if you don't know what Wound Reflection is, get on magiccards.info or something like that for a better description of it, because it's in Japanese, and if I read it to you, I don't think you'll understand it, and I probably won't understand it very well either. So go online and get a nice description of that card. Alright, next we have the Genesis Wave. We do have a ton of mana in this deck, so we want to be able to sink it into something, and Genesis Wave is pretty good for that. Next one is Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library is a very good card, should be in all your green decks. It's just an all-around, very efficient, good 2-drop for green. It's really good. Play Sylvan Library if you can get one. They're not very expensive right now. I suggest you do it. And the last card in the deck is another combo card with Jarad. It's Hatred. If everyone's at 20 life or something like that, and you end up having 40 life, or you can pay the life to get into it, then you just Hatred in response to your trigger or whatever. Do it before. It doesn't matter. But you can Hatred your own guy, make him huge, sacrifice him to Jarad, and everybody dies. And if that's not the way you want to win, you can actually kill one of your opponents by giving Hatred to one of your opponents who's killing him. So if one of your opponents is trying to kill another opponent with their general, you can Hatred up their general, paying your own life, and having them kill the other guy. So you can kind of you can do this in multiple ways. This is not like a one-trick pony. Hatred can do a lot of cool stuff, and it can kill people out of nowhere. So it's a really good card. And so this is Jarad. It's a deck built around the sacrifice strategy synergy. And what it does is it puts guys in the bin, and it kills everyone at the same time. There's no politics. He doesn't play favorites. He kills everybody at the same time. It's a really cool deck. I suggest you build it, try it, test it, whatever. Please, thank you very much. This is another